Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. And joining me from Asheville tonight, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew, you just saw Carolina defeat Stanford 67-63 in the semifinals of the Maui Invitational. Carolina advancing to the finals to play Texas on Wednesday at 4 p.m. So big win for Carolina. Close game. I think it was a game and a matchup that we kind of expected to go down to the wire. And it lived up to expectations in that regard, AJ. First thing I want to talk about, though, we knew Carolina was going to have tough games, especially up in Asheville for the Maui Invitational. And when you're looking at their non-conference schedule before the season, I don't think last year's team would have won this game. And a guy that ends up coming up big for the Tar Heels is a guy that was a part of so many of those games last year in Leaky Black, making a crucial bucket at the end, hitting a crucial free throw, doing some other things as well to help Carolina propel to the victory. But overall, tough game, tough win. Carolina finds a way, and Leaky Black has a lot to do with that.
They needed a game like this. We said last week after Charleston game, they're going to have – I thought they'd probably lose a game this week. And didn't think it'd be that big a deal. We knew that they would struggle. They would have to grit some stuff out if they were going to win a game, 3 games here. Maybe if they were going to win 2 games here. So they had that game tonight. They faced a little adversity last night. Actually, they faced adversity against Charleston, trailed in the second half. They faced adversity out of the gate last night, and they kept battling it all game long against a well-coached team that knew a lot of the sets they were going to run, okay? And also a team that was really physical. They did not let Carolina run their stuff, but even when Carolina wasn't running some of the basic stuff, I think Stanford really kind of affected Carolina's offensive flow in the first half. As a result, Caleb Love didn't have a particularly good first half. He struggled in a lot of ways. He talked about it afterward. Even Roy talked about it afterward. Of course, that's part of the process, Jacob. And we'll hit on the guards a little bit later in this video. I think in general, the fact that they won a game that they wouldn't have won a year ago is a big thing right now, because 4 very important players in this team were guys that lost a lot of those games. And you mentioned Leaky Black. We talked about him before we shot the video. He has 17 rebounds in 2 nights here. Yeah, he had big. 2 driving baskets tonight, one of them inside that last 5 minutes of the game, that window. He also hit a free throw to give them the 4-point cushion. His defense on Zion Williams through stretches was really, really good. And there were times where he ended up being on the top with the ball, kind of settling things down a little bit. He had a few lazy passes and soft passes, but he was able to get in the lane a little bit more than what we saw last year. The turf toe's healthy, the ankle's healthy, so we're seeing a little bit more of that Leaky Black. And I just thought that the maturity he showed, especially in the second half, was really, really important for the Tar Heels. And then you throw in what Garrison was able to give him a couple of big buckets, and just being what Garrison is, kind of the coach on the court in many, many respects. And I thought it was really interesting in the last 5 minutes. They run sharp on the floor, not Armando Bacon. I think Roy knew that most of the shots they were going to get were guards driving. And RJ Davis did drive a lot. And Sharp was so good at getting offensive rebounds and putbacks because he literally owns the space on the floor where he stands. So I think that was one of the reasons he was out there. And guess what? He blocked a shot. He deflected an inbound pass. He had a steal. So I thought that was a really big move by Roy. Roy is showing some signs he's starting to really get to know this team. That was one of those coaching moves that illustrates that. And they won a game. You got to win ugly. Look, Carolina fans can go back to every national championship run and think of a game that they didn't play that great, but they won it. And I'm not saying this is a national championship team. My point is, in order to win ugly late in the year, you have to have already won ugly earlier in the year to know that you can. And they won, and it was ugly in a lot of ways, but I also think when they get a few weeks down the road, Roy's going to look back at this and say, that's exactly what they needed.
Absolutely. Got another stat that Steve Kirshner sent to us after the game. UNC's lost its last 18 games with scoring under 70 points. So not only would have last year's team not won this game, most Carolina teams wouldn't have won in the past, only scoring 67 points. So Carolina breaking that record after that's a crazy stat right there. It's a heck of a stat from Steve, and appreciate it, him sending us that. AJ, second thing I want to touch on, Let's talk about Carolina's dominance on the glass. It's been a theme for this team. It's a theme of Roy Williams' teams for as long as people can remember, except for some moments last year. But Carolina out-rebounding the Cardinal tonight, 43-23. And that dominance on the glass led to a lot of second-chance points, a lot of second-chance opportunities that allowed Carolina to kind of stay with Stanford for most of the game, because it really did seem like Carolina was kind of trailing by 3, 4, 5, 6 points for a majority of that game before they kind of came back late and were able to take the win. But, dominating on the glass is a theme of Carolina. It has been for a long time. We saw it again tonight. If
you're going to commit 24 turnovers, go ahead and out-rebound the other team by 20, and you can offset that some, especially when you have 16 offensive rebounds. Mm-hmm. Those are extra possessions. I think 22, 23 second chance points, really big for the Tar Heels. And I think dominance on the glass gives you more of a psychological edge over your opponent than they would get if you're turning the ball over a lot. Because sometimes a team gets out-rebounded because the other one's just better. They're going to own you on the glass no matter what. Carolina and Stanford can play 10 more times, and Carolina's going to dominate them on the glass. Carolina isn't necessarily going to turn the ball over 24 times. A lot of that was on the Tar Heels. A lot of that was sloppy stuff. A lot of the turnovers weren't even with the ball. They were away from the ball. Yeah. So that's something that this team is showing right now that it does at like the 2017 level, the 2009 level. Again, I'm not saying this is a championship team at all. I'm not doing that. But I'm trying to draw a correlation to how good this team is on the glass. It's not just the bigs. One of the questions people had before the season is, okay, well, Roy doesn't just demand that his bigs dominate the glass. He wants the wings to get rebounds. He used to always talk about, Justin Jackson would score 20 points and 2 rebounds. Well, he'd talk about the 2 rebounds. Yeah. Cam Johnson was the same way. Cam would go 24 points with 5 threes, and Roy would, he had 2 rebounds, 3 rebounds. Leaky Black had 10 last night. He had 7 tonight. They were big. A couple of them were really big boards. And what do we say in our preseason Leaky Black podcast? Rip and run, right? A couple tonight, he got on the defensive end, he ripped it down and went up the court and got them into the secondary break. Huge. So really impressive on the glass. These guys hit the boards hard. Some of the guards need to do a better job of boxing out. They gave up a few offensive rebounds by not boxing out, but that will come with time, as will so many other things. This is a fantastic rebounding team, and that makes Roy happy, because that, to him, is the most important stat in basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. AJ, you just touched on the guards. That's the last thing I want to touch on before we wrap this one up. Caleb Love, you already mentioned him. Tough first half for him, but comes back and has a huge second half, finishes with 16 points. Y'all said RJ Davis, 11 points, has some assists in there as well. So we're kind of seeing those two true freshmen grow before our eyes. I tweeted it early on in the game, but I've obviously been very impressed with Caleb Love. But RJ Davis is a guy, when he's running that point guard position, doesn't look like a true freshman out there. Sure, he makes some mistakes from time to time, which is what you're going to expect, but kind of the way he sets up the offense, sets up the defense, how confident and comfortable he looks with the ball in the hands, I think has been very impressive. So we're seeing those two guys in particular kind of grow up right in front of us, and there's still a lot of growing to do, but they're showing really positive signs early on in the season.
We're watching Caleb's vision. We'll watch his vision improve. He's going to see more in 3 weeks than he does now. He's going to see more 3 weeks after that than he does in 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
The incremental improvement in how he sees the game and anticipates a play or two ahead is going to be a really fun thing to watch. RJ, he's got a motor. People have been throwing the Joel Berry thing around, and there are some similarities.
I think it's the hair.
Yeah, I think they're both tough.
Yeah.
They're both tough, and they go in the lane, and you could smack them around like a pinball, and they're unfazed by it. RJ, I think, is a little bit more athletic, but we'll see down the road if he's got some of those intangibles that Joel had.
Yeah,
I think he was showing some signs of that in the last 5 minutes. You notice he was on the ball a lot late in the game. And Caleb was kind of playing off, which Roy said, we're going to see some of that. It's not just going to be if Caleb's in the game, he's always the point. Caleb's a scorer. Sometimes you need a bucket, free him up, get him in a situation where 4 of the defenders don't know where he is, and sometimes that's a good matchup for you if he can get a one-on-one situation. Now, in the first half, he was 2 for 11. He had 3 turnovers. He finished with 5, but he said that he was kind of forcing things. He wasn't very comfortable, and I don't think he ran the offense all that well in the first half. He did a better job in the second half, and once hitting a couple of threes and having a driving layup made them better running the show in the second half. Roy always says things look a lot better when the ball goes through the basket, and young players get a lot of confidence when the ball goes through the basket. So this was a great educational experience for Caleb. He didn't have a great game, and he still finished with 16 points. He still hit big shots that helped get the Tar Heels going and helped lead them to a victory. And then afterwards said everything you would want him to say about what he got out of tonight's experience.
Yeah.
And then RJ, we didn't get a chance to talk to RJ after the game, but I just love the grit. He's athletic and gritty, and they're both fearless. And they're going to continue to move forward at a similar pace. They're going to do it together, and they're going to rely on each other. And they're different enough players that they make a really interesting backcourt. I think by late January, most nights they're going to be really good. They may struggle tomorrow. This team may struggle against Texas. I watched Texas in the second half in person tonight. It's an awfully impressive team. They got a lot of good athletes. They're long. So tomorrow's going to be a really big test. But you know what? They got 2 wins in, Jacob. They won a game tonight. Maybe they should have or certainly could have lost. And they're learning. They're adding that layer of armor that really good teams need to have. And it's December 1st, and they've won 3 games in which they've been challenged in different ways. And their guards have come through. They've found ways to get stuff done, and they are taking shape in a Roy Williams form 3 games in. I think that what we're going to see play out over the next few weeks and into January is more of that. So Carolina fans should be pretty excited. They're going to lose some games, guys, but there's so many parts. There's so many moving parts, but they're all parts that kind of fit down the road. It's going to take a while for everything to come together and kind of get on the same plate. But when they do, it's going to be a nice plate. It's going to be a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this team develops going on later into the season. Doesn't get any easier there, like you said, taking on Texas tomorrow. We all know how much Carolina as a program has struggled with Texas over the past 10, 15 years. So Carolina getting the big victory tonight, 67-63 over Stanford. That's going to do it for us. AJ, thanks for joining me from Asheville, man. As always, guys, be sure to like this video, be sure to share it, and also be sure to check out TarHeelIllustrated.com for all your post-game coverage from Carolina's win over the Cardinals tonight. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.